here we go. As far as the time and what it stands for. Responsibility, accountability, verbal recollections, and going into the dark to find the light. And that's what we're doing. We are revealing the light now.
Trying to get this big black truck, off. Yeah, so this just came to me about how, when I got wrecked on Bethesda Road, and it was like, it really was. I was being stalked. And, it was like I was trying to get this big black truck, off my butt. I mean, they were just riding my butt. And, trying to get, going down freaking Bethesda, they were just on my tail on the car. And I was like, y'all can pass me, so I'd slow down and they wouldn't pass me. And I was just like, okay, this is weird, so I'd speed up and then I'd slow down, speed up, slow down. And I was like, why won't they pass me? And then I got kind of irritated, so then it became a little chicken game in a way, because there wasn't any other cars coming down the road. And I was like, all right, so I'm going to speed up and we'll slow down and be like, mother effers, y'all need to pass me. Like, what is wrong with y'all? And when we got to the end of the farm, it was just that little bit of distance, which isn't that little, but little enough. It's not huge, but it was the length of the farm. And when we got to the, towards the tree line, it was like they hurried up and sped up beside me, and then they hurried up and pulled over in my lane and slammed on their brakes so I'd hit them. And I was like, oh my God, and I did. I swerved over to the right, to the side of the road, but the front left end of my car hit their rear right end. And so it was like, boom, and I hit, and it was like I almost spun off, kind of, but I didn't. I just slid, and it was like, slid to the side, my right tail went, towards the side of the road, and my front end was kind of ended up facing towards the road, my car just went sideways from it, and so I hurried up, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna end up, they're gonna do something to me, and I'm gonna end up, thrown in the, dead girl's gonna be found, beside Bethesda cow field, and so I just hurried up and I left. I literally was it was because it's just the front end that was damaged, it was just body damage on the front end of the car, and so I just backed up, and turned the other way, and I went around. I went back from where we were coming from, and I went around, and I went through the little cut through that you can go through to miss the stoplight, and I went all the way down Whitfield and up onto the little bypass or whatever, and I went straight to Williamstown, straight to my house, my apartment, and I called the officers and made the report. And I just remember feeling report this past summer because I knew, and that was my due diligence. As a daughter of a psycho, pedophile, I just thought at the time I wasn't seeing him as a mass murderer. I really was just seeing him as a freaking pervert and pedophile. And I knew that he probably did have something to do with Amber, but I was thinking more like he has something to do with the roots of Amber's addiction, not so much, the actual act of her killing. But now, of course, I do see that it was him, and it's like a scapegoat he had for her. I really do feel that deep in me that, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but it still should be looked at, because I know my dad was scapegoat people, and he can threaten people, in such a way like, hey, if you don't freaking take this rap or whatever, then it would be like, hey, I'll make sure you die a torturous death, and you can ask one of your relatives or ask somebody else, if I hadn't made them, made someone they know die a torturous death or whatever, because he was trying to kill, he was killing black people, and because I heard my mom talking about it, killing black people from downtown and stuff, or in a bad neighborhood, or a rundown neighborhood or whatever. And then it's like, now I'm reminded of like chicken bones, the little references he would make to chicken bones. And it was like, my mom would question him, like, where are you putting, he would say, like, he put some of the bodies, over there by Bethesda. And he's like, well, if any of the boys find them, over there by Bethesda, then they'll just think they're chicken bones or whatever. So it's like, maybe he's hiding some of his bones over there by, and so it's just like that symbolism. Like, I'm in awe right now of how it's tying in together 5 years ago. That is like, excuse me, it was at my dad's, like threat on me to show me, or was he really planning on killing me that day too, and I just happened to get away? I mean, because I remember, taking a picture of the license plate of another big black truck that I swore I was like, that was like the truck that hit me, and I think it even did have a dent in the rear of the car, or the rear of the truck, I can't remember, but I did, I took a picture of it because I sent it to my brother, and he just become a cop, and I said, I was like, can you please, check this? I was like, see if there was an accident report or something, and because I did have the cop, that when I reported the accident, I was like, I had the cop, say, I was like, please check and see if there's any accidents reported, like thinking they probably want their rear end fixed, like I'd want my front end fixed, and no report of any accidents or anything. And then my brother tells me that he can't look up the license plate to see, to do any questions or anything, because that would, that quote probable cause or something, or if he wasn't, the officer called to the scene, or whatever the protocol is, that, he's like, well, if I just look up a random, license plate, Liz, Elizabeth, he just calls me Elizabeth, but, was that, it could cost him to lose his job, like he's not supposed to do that. Excuse me, so early. So, I went with that, like, okay, no big deal. So it's something I just have to deal with, live with, or whatever. But I do think it's a little ironic, too, that it was right around the time that, my dad was getting me, like, I don't know if it was, like, new windshield wipers, or, he was getting me something for the car. I mean, and I kind of want to be sarcastic right now and be like, watch it be, like, a backup battery, but no, it wasn't. Whatever we were doing, we were in, like, AutoZone, or we were in, one of those little car shops, whether it was, Napa's or AutoZone or something, and he got me a little daisy license plate thing to go around my license plate, so that it could remind me of my mom. Like, my mom loved daisies. I know, like, because I know how sly he is and how everything, ties in together to mean something. It's like, did he get me that little daisies, like, license plate thing, around my license plate decor on the rear end, as like a marker, to be like, hey, look out for that Toyota, get that Toyota Corolla with a little daisy license plate thing around it, like, I don't know. I mean, this isn't me being paranoid. I think this is really me, like, going like, hey, I'm putting this shit together because, you want to sit there and you want to compare chicken bones outside, the cow fields, by the Bethesda barn. Like, I don't know. And I think my mom said that. She's like, well, why would chicken bones be beside a cow field when the chicken coops and stuff are, like, on the other side, or, like, far away from it, the tree line, like, it doesn't make sense like that, so, but anyways, these are the words I'm remembering. I am, I'm full aware, hey, speculation, maybe I've watched too much TV, maybe this is paranoia, whatever, but I'm sorry, there is some validity to it when you put all the rest of the stuff together, is that my dad is that pathological, maniacal, diabolical, sadistic, to plan things out the way he does, because he would say he'll never get caught, he always has a scapegoat, and then it's also the fact that, he digs his holes 3 foot, and I remember this talk, he will dig a hole 3 foot down from the tree trunk to find the pocket underneath the tree trunk, and that's where he can hide shit, and then cover it back up, and that's why he did. He always had a shovel, in the back of his truck. Trash bags, of course. A sprayer, a bucket, bleach, whatever. I'm sorry, but he had all that shit in the back of his car that, could say, hey, that these are signs of a freaking serial killer. Whether it's rope, whether it's definitely bungee cords. Oh gosh, of course. He always had the bungee cords, So, I mean, and it wasn't because he was strapping ladders to his truck, because he didn't need ladders. He never had ladders on his truck. So, what? Oh, you got the bungee cords to strap your cooler down to the truck when you've got the deep pocket, truck bed? Like you really need a bungee cord a cooler down? No, you don't. No, you don't. What? You need the bungee cord to, pull down and make sure your cab is locked, whenever you have the toolboxes on the back of the truck bed, No, you have a key to lock those down. And, you might need 1 or 2 bungee cords to be, certain if you really needed to. But you don't need to pack your bungee cords if you don't have ladders to carry. So anyway, I'm going to throw that out there. And so, but yeah, what else was it? It was like, okay, so the seedlings of a new tree, planting a new tree. So you'll cut down a field of trees, and then they have some time go by, and then whenever they're ready to plant the new trees, knowing that it takes, they say, he would tell me, they take about 10, 15 years, at least 10 years, before they want to cut them down again. So he's like, they'll take the seedlings and they put them in the middle of the tree trunks, the old tree trunks, that they've cut down, if they've hollowed out or whatever, or if they hollow them out, I don't know, but, whatever, they hollow them out, and they plant the new trees inside the old tree trunks, because that also creates a protective coating, or a protective barrier to help, for the new trees to grow safely, up and in, and, a new tree can grow in an old tree trunk, no problem. That's actually part of the method or whatever, so it's like, whoa, I mean, I literally remember that. And so that's another way he covers up his track, because that covers up his tracks, because the new trees, when they're tiny and they're little and they're growing, their roots go down in the center, and then there you go, it's more cover up. So then you've got new roots, growing in between the old roots, and the new tree trunk growing out, breaking open the old tree trunk, creating your taller, stronger tree, and usually they grow straighter up that way, because they are protected that much, around. So that's the way it goes, so whatever, there has been a threat on my life, my whole life. Today is my my mom's birthday. I've got my friend here, is calling for surveillance around the condo here we're staying in, his townhome, because, I'm like, yeah, just say you see suspicious activity out front, we need a surveillance, check, to make sure that there's nothing suspicious going out front, because it is, it's like, I'm not living in fear, because I'm facing this shit fearlessly, but it is like, wow, I mean, now that I see my dad's a freaking murderer, a freaking homicidal maniac, like my mom's insane, and this goes back to the meat slicer. I mean, that was the big joke. That's the sick joke he liked to talk about all the time, is making sure my mom knew that he was taking her meat slicer, and she would say, why don't you get another meat slicer, Rob? And he would say, well, because, Carol, if anyone ever does catch me, and they examine it good enough, your fingerprints are the one all over it. And that makes you an accomplice. And she's like, well, I'm pretty sure they'll know that I'm not an accomplice to such sick, twisted things. And he's like, how do you know? Because they used to turn you on in the bedroom. And she's like, no, not really. I just knew that I had to go along with your sick, twisted, fantasies, sexual fantasies or whatever, I mean, it's just disgusting. So anyway, yeah, I first time, you know, he violated me with his penis inside of me. You know, I'll just put it out there like it is, because, you know, he did. He freaking, like, said it would look like a tampon that I might have when I'm later on in my years, you know, when I have my period finally, that, you know, that's what it would look like. And I remember just being like, no, it's too big, I don't want to, you know. And here I am, you know, just so little. You know, and we're out there on Lake Murray on the boat and everything, you know, and he did. He forced himself on me, and then he electrocuted me, and he gave me CPR, and he freaking, like, you know, put a gun in my mouth and acted like he was going to throw me over the boat. And, I mean, this is all real. This is real shit that happened to me, you know, and it's taken me this long to be able to face it and process it and speak it and say, you know, this is what happened and this is the truth. And, you know, I mean, he knows how to do his sick, twisted hypnotisms and make you, you know, block shit out. And he does it by reintroducing the power of suggestion and then telling you a little joke or whatever that's going to make you want to block it out. I mean, every single holiday there was a joke about the meat slicer. And I never caught on. And so much so that this is how much I blotted out. Like, and this wasn't me trying to make a jab at my dad. I would never be so bold if I knew he was this sadistic or maniacal to commit murder like this, you know? Other than being in Vietnam following orders, to know that my dad would be capable of, like, willfully doing this. I mean, yeah, I was able, like, when I first started making these recordings, I was able to go, like, oh my God, you know, he slowly killed my grandmother. You know, he slowly killed my grandmother. You know, but not like a torturous, sicko way with, like, knives and ugh. I mean, just so anyway, I did. We were having dinner at the bar. It was like there was a barbecue place. You know, which is disgusting to think about it like that, but it was the barbecue place. You know, and I can't remember the exact name of it now, but it was right there by the McDonald's. It's always been there. It was right there by the sushi place, Sushi's Inn. It was where the movie theater was. They made a Planet Fitness there. And I will remember the name of that barbecue place. I just can't remember it right now. And I think it changed once or twice. But, and it was almost like a patriotic one, you know? It might have been like red, white, it might have been red, white, and blue barbecue. I don't know. But anyway, I got my dad a Father's Day gift. I think it was his birthday or his Father's Day. And it was a cutting board that was the shape of a tree, like a small tree trunk. You know, it was just like a slice of a tree, and you could see the rings of the tree. And it was a cutting board, and it had the bark around it. And I had gotten it from Form, which was a cheese shop, cheese and wine shop. And they were just the coolest little things, you know. It was like has a little, you know, cheese knife, and it was supposed to be for a cheese tray. They weren't really cutting boards; they were cheese trays. So it's like, you know, I get that from my dad, and now I know why he didn't act like he liked it so much, because of what it symbolized for him and his crimes. And I'm thinking, like, oh, he's going to appreciate being able to count the rings of a tree and, you know, have like a cheese plate, you know. And I mean, yeah, you know. So it's just like, you know, I'm sorry, I'm tying that all in together, and y'all can say that makes me manic, and y'all can say that the way I'm talking so fast makes me manic or whatever, but given the topic, given the subject, and given that it's what I went through and what my father has done and what I've witnessed and heard, you know, it just by being around there and, like, but blocking it all out. So, you know, now that I recollect it all, you know, yeah, I probably seem a little manic to get the words out fast enough, because I've been afraid to not be heard my whole life. I've been afraid to not be heard and be made a liar. So it's like I have to get out all these details when I first recollect something. And then he's probably going to turn around, oh, she's crazy. She don't know what she's talking about. Well, pretty sure I know what I'm talking about, especially if they went to go try to find evidence of you and all the unsolved murders of the black population in Savannah, Georgia. You know, like, knowing that that's why my mom couldn't watch the news anymore. You know, and then my brother, I know he knows. I know my brother knows. I know Robert knows. And I know if Robert hasn't talked to me anymore, it was to protect me. And also his family, if he hadn't turned him in, knowing that my dad would, you know, tell him how he would kill him and his family. Or, you know, I mean, I can speculate, but I'll say that I'm sure that there are real reasons that my brother's also has brain poisoned about me and how horrible I am, and probably that I would try to seduce my father or something. That's just, I'm like, ugh, no, I would not. And there was that time, when I was 21 years old or so, and I was wanting to go to this modeling convention down in Jacksonville. I think it was Jacksonville. And it was like, nothing happened. Nothing happened down there that I remember. We spent 1 or 2 nights down there. I think it was just one night. And it might have been 2. And if we did, nothing happened that I remember sexually at all, And part of that would be his cover-up. Part of his cover-up to show that, he doesn't do it every time. Or whatever, or that it never happened in the first place and I was imagining it before, or whatever. It's just a way to cause doubt, so, I mean, whatever. I'm calling to make another report this morning, after I get some more rest. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I know I've got a police surveillance coming around. I got the door double locked. I got my caulk gun with the little poker, that thing ready. I got my freaking mud knives and, edgers and things. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna fight for myself, He's not taking me down without taking a few blows or whatever, but I don't even want to fight like that, I'm not like that. I just want to be in peace and love and joy, but I will try to fight and protect myself. And that's why, I am a little scrappy. That's why I played chicken with those guys on Bethesda Road a little bit, when it come to they wouldn't freaking pass me. I was like waving, like, y'all go around me, slow down enough kindly, not like being not doing anything to them except just, y'all can go around me. They wouldn't do it. So, hey, if I feel entitlement or I'm a little bratty or I'm a little whatever, yeah. All I gotta say is I went to private school long enough to be that way, and I was spoiled, and I did have things given to me, and then taken away. So, I get a little irritated, and that's where a lot of my emotional regulation would come from, is the games, and the mind games, just the fuckery, I'm just gonna say it, it's the fuckery, and the mind twisted games that he played on me, that of course, I'm not gonna be perfect, not gonna happen. So this is me processing, this is me working through it, and I take responsibility for my actions that are wrong. I will admit where I'm wrong, but I'm not taking responsibility for his shit anymore. So this is the other part though about my